Michael Behrens again on Hill Country Conservancy's Knoll Bunny Run for another virtual tour. It's Saturday morning, May 23rd, and we're going to walk through the preserve again, about 40 acres of varied habitat types, and see what we can find. So last month we looked at antelope horn milkweed in this same spot, and we found a couple monarch butterflies on one of the plants. And this month, returning to some of these same milkweed plants, they're not flowering anymore. Last month they had these big spherical flowering bodies, and now one of them at least has turned into a seed pod. So this seed pod is going to harden and eventually crack open, and it's full of like cottony seeds. And as I'm down here, I'm smelling a lot of sweet plant smells, and I think it's mostly because of it's from this tiny little pinkish flower called Lindheimer's false pennyroyal. And I think Lindheimer was a well-known botanist in the area, but I don't know what a pennyroyal is or why this would be a false one, but it's very fragrant, this little plant here. So we found another caterpillar, not a monarch butterfly caterpillar, but this dark fuzzy caterpillar with some orange highlights, and they're pretty common. You see them around. I think it's from a salt marsh moth, and I don't think they're super specialists on any one particular kind of plant. I can't exactly tell which stem it's on, but right around it here there are all these, this flower is called golden wave. It's actually my favorite of our wildflowers. The common name golden wave can refer to two different species that are really similar, and I think they're both in the genus Coreopsis. And then a batch of sensitive plants with these pink spherical flowers. And one thing we forgot to do last month, the reason why they're named sensitive plants is when you touch them, the leaves will fold up in reaction to touch. So here's we found this nice patch of the wildflower called Mexican hat, common name. And one neat thing about this species is it's dimorphic. Some of the flowers are almost all of this dark brownish red color with just some yellow highlights, and then some of them are completely yellow without any brown, and then there are various stages in between. It's all the same species, just with that different variation. So this caught my eye right here. This is called a bagworm, common name. There's lots of different species of I think mostly moths, where the caterpillar builds this bag of leaves around itself, and this one might be anchored and metamorphosizing inside it now. But the bagworms will live like this. They'll actually, some of them, before they get to this stage, the head and the front feet will be sticking out of the top, and they'll walk around while hanging like this, and you might see one of these just moving around on the limb of a bush or a tree. And then right beside it, here's another native milkweed called pearl milkweed. It's called pearl milkweed because there's that little white spot in the middle of the flower that looks like a little pearl, and it has these heart-shaped leaves. So I'm hearing two riparian vireos singing right now, kind of close to each other. One is a red-eyed vireo, which is kind of rapid jirrit, 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 jirrit. There's a cardinal overlapping it now, and unfortunately now I'm not hearing, there it is, a yellow-throated vireo, similar to the red-eyed vireo, but a little slower and a little bit of a trill or a slur to it. If you learn what a red-eyed vireo song sounds like, and then imagine a red-eyed vireo's been out drinking, and that's what the yellow-throated vireo song sounds like. a little slower and a little bit slurred. There's the yellow-throated. It's kind of difficult right now because there's also some cardinals singing. And a blue-gray gnatcatcher over our heads. And the Carolina wren, I think, out there as well. So I must have walked right over this little rough green snake, and Melissa spotted it behind me. And since I know these are really harmless snakes, I grabbed it. These eat insects, and they're known to like to climb trees a lot too. And gosh, this is like one of just a handful of times we've encountered a snake on the bunny run. I usually don't. I'm not looking for them, and so I'm not really tuned into snakes like I am other groups of animals. So this is a real treat to be able to see this one, and even hold it too. This is a really neat drainage on the bunny run. A little waterfall that's very dependent on rain these days, and but it's flowing today. We're really fortunate. You can hear it trickling, and there's northern cardinals singing in the background. And one really neat thing is you can see these pools, these little shallow pools on the surface of the limestone rock. And I'm not sure about this. I'm going to have to research this more, but I think these pools are formed by limestone dissolved in the water, depositing the ridges, depositing the borders around the pools over the years. And if I'm right, I've seen something similar on some parts of Bull Creek on Concordia University property, and it's a very sensitive, really unique, neat hill country formation. All right, so this is a natural spring from the Knoll Bunny Run that we visit each monthly group walk, and it was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout project to dig it out. It had become inundated over the years, and also building this lid over it was part of that project. And we're going to lift up this lid here. See a couple surface striders, a big cave cricket on the surface of the water. And down in the bottom, I think I see one crawfish, kind of a bluish crawfish crawling around in the very bottom. You can see it's still real full from the recent rains. And look how clear that water is. This cement box was probably built in the 40s or 50s to keep the spring open as a easier to access resource of fresh water. And we've never seen this go completely dry over the years. There's the crawfish walking around.
I see it.
So this is this cleared off area with these little mounds is a huge colony of Texas leafcutter ants that's been here for a long time. That's a native species of ant that, and you can see, coincidentally, all the vegetation is stripped of leaves here. These ants cut little pieces of leaves off of plants, bushes, and trees, and take the pieces down underground, and actually grow fungus on the little pieces of leaves and eat the fungus. So they're like underground farmers. Ready? Okay, so this is a neat tree here. This is a gum bumelia. The leaves are a little bit similar to a live oak, where there's kind of a mixture here. There's a green briar vine and maybe a little bit of Mustang grape vine. And then I'm not going to touch this one. This is poison ivy. And this is groups of 3 leaves, and the center leaf is out on that extended stem. And you see that's growing up here too. But the gum bumelia itself, the tree, these are the leaves, and you see it has some thorns here. It's a native Texas tree. And what's neat about this one in particular is over on the trunk here you can see these rows of holes, and for years and years this tree has been used by yellow-bellied sapsuckers, which is a native type of woodpecker that's here in the winter, and that's what all these holes are from. So we're right under, we've been hearing a northern cardinal, one of our most common neighborhood birds here in central Texas, and they're all over the bunny run as well. They have a real musical song, and it's often in multiple parts. They sound real similar to our equally common Carolina wren, but northern cardinal often has multiple parts to the song, and if you hear this one, it'll start out with like a dee and then switch pattern to a tweet, 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 tweet. That was a good example there. And Carolina wren, which has a similar tone song, will always just do the same phrase, 3 or 4 or 5 syllables over and over. It'll never have those multiple parts like the northern cardinal will. The northern cardinal is also like has a smoother, liquidy tone to it that Carolina wren doesn't quite have. So this is a really good native grass species called switchgrass, and it's similar to the invasive species Johnson grass, but Johnson grass will have a light stripe that goes down the middle of the leaf, which switchgrass doesn't. But switchgrass has similar seed heads. The seed heads on switchgrass are a little finer and airier than on Johnson grass. And switchgrass is a really important riparian species near water, creeks and rivers. And one thing I recently learned about it is as tall as the switchgrass grows above the ground, the roots grow even deeper below the ground. And so it's really important for stabilizing soil, and those deep roots also facilitate water soaking into the ground and into the aquifer faster than it would otherwise. So we're back at the gate. We've completed another virtual tour of the Hill Country Conservancy's Knoll Bunny Run. Some highlights were I'd stepped over a little rough green snake that Melissa noticed after me, and I grabbed it, and we got some close looks at a snake. I've seen very few snakes on this property, so that was a real treat. We heard a lot of the same and saw a few of the same breeding bird species, returning migrants like summer tanager and red-eyed vireo, white-eyed vireo, yellow-throated vireo. And for the first time this season, I was really happy to hear and briefly see a yellow-throated warbler down in the cypress trees by the water, a bird that is uncommon in Travis County, and there used to be a small breeding population of them here, and it's nice to know at least one has returned this season. So thanks, and hopefully we can do this again next month.